me to pause it. I've just realised that's made the whole thing flicker, but it should calm down. So we'll take, I've just got a tea towel because I want to make sure that I don't smash my flowers, okay? And then a bit of tissue which I can dampen, kind of dab my colours with, and a little bit of a tray so that I can put my colours in. So I know that some of you have done different colour flowers, made different colour flowers, but I'm just going to show you the one that I've made, which is just kind of quite pale. It's mostly white, but it has got a greeny yellow centre in the middle. So in my tray I've got moss green, lemon yellow, and I've also got a bit of pearl shimmer as well. Okay, and if you don't want the shine of the pearl shimmer, then you can just use white petal dust. Okay, so I'll start with the diddy ones. So we made these little diddy chrysanthemum flowers, which are really cute. They're going to have probably more of a greeny shade in the center, but the green itself is too bluey, it's a bit harsh, so I want to actually just dampen it down a little bit with some yellow, so make it a bit more limey. If you see my frozen face on the screen, that is where I realise that possibly the focus has gone on the camera, so I just momentarily click and it refocuses. So I'm just I've mixed the green and the yellow together, and I'll just put a little bit of the pearl white in there just to pale it down a fraction, so not too strong in colour. And then with the small ones we just colour the centre, so you can be quite liberal with this. And we can colour the back. Now at the moment these haven't got calexes on, but I will show you what cutter I've used for the calyx. And the calyx itself is, I've just coloured a little bit of foliage green to go on the back. And when you made the leaves, you would have used, it would be the green that you used for the leaves, if you can remember back that far. I know it's a long time. So I'm just colouring a little bit on the back. If the calyx was on already, you just have to be a bit more careful. Okay, so you can't, there's not a huge difference in the tone, it's just a little bit greeny in the middle, a little bit greeny yellow in the middle. So that's the smallest one. You then had some middle-sized flowers, and these ones I'm actually going to keep in the foil because they're very, very fragile. And I'm going to work with the same colours, just put a little bit more so I don't run out. So the lime yellow shade and a little bit of the pearl white to pale it. And again with my brush, I don't have to worry too much about it being overloaded either, because this is going to go into the middle and we'll just concentrate the colour in the centre. The more mature the flower is, for this one that I've done, the whiter it is on the outside, so you only really want to put the colour in the centre and then just a bit of blush on the outside. Okay, so it's not strongly coloured all the way to the edge. So that's the front, and if you're careful, peel it back and then you can colour on the back as well. So just draw the colour up to about here. I'm not going to do that, all of that for you, just so you can see, but I'll colour it, all this area here is going to be coloured all the way around. The foil is just to stop it from breaking because the petals are exceptionally fragile. Okay, and then you would do the same for the next medium sized. I think we had one that was smaller than this, and also for, let's just position this one down here, also for the big flower. And the big flower, because it's almost well, it is fully blooming, it won't have much colour at all. It'll be majority white, just again the centre's got the same mix of lime green and pearl white to pale it down. Okay, so you can see I've got the same colouring on all of these. Very, very subtle for the white. So once you've coloured your flowers, you can move on to your leaves. So I'll just show those and then we'll have a bit of a chat, and then I'll move on to the calyx and assembly. So this was just coloured with foliage green. For those who weren't in the course, I've used oak leaves to cut these shapes out. And then you could use a rose leaf vein, or I think we've used, can't remember what we used. Someone can remind me in a minute. I think it's foxglove as a veiner. Can't remember now. I'd have to look that up. But yeah, the foliage green, 28 gauge wire. And this we can just load up the brush with moss green, touch of lemon yellow to take the bluey out. And you would colour all over, because the leaves themselves, they haven't got much detail to them at all. They're just plain green. So you would just colour the front and the back of each leaf right to the edge. Okay, same on the back. You can see the difference. Just it'll take the cornflower off as well. And we had some little ones, and these can be coloured in the same way as well. So all your leaves coloured with a moss green touch of yellow. Once you've done that, you can give them a little bit of a tape. Okay. So just a little twist of tape onto each piece. It's quite nice because the private, not the private lessons, but the online lessons we've been doing have been for, we've had a lot of beginners come in, which is fantastic, but it's quite nice to come into a class and not have to explain how to tape a wire. I will just talk you through the calyx because I won't demo that tonight, but if you remember, we were using 6 petal cutters, which for some reason, for love nor money, I can't find them. I've had a tidy up in the studio and I can't find them, but you need something that's got petals on it. So whichever cutter you've used for your chrysanthemum bud and flowers, that would be the one that you use for your green, and just go a size smaller. So I've got on here, just move this out of the way. Can you see I've got a smallish, it's like a daisy, it's the 6 petal daisy cutter, but on the larger ones it's slightly bigger. Okay, I don't know if you can see that here. So that's just a piece of foliage green paste that I've rolled out thinly, and once I've cut the shape out, I've used the veining tool just to press into each sepal so that it cups itself, just to close it up slightly. So you can see here that it's a little bit more cupped on the more mature flowers. If you can see in here, there is a cup to it. Okay, so that's the colouring for the whole lot and the calyx. If I just going to pause the recording. So the record starts now. So the twigs, I'm using some dark green, greeny brown. It's not the reddy brown tape, it's kind of the mossy brown tape that I'm using. And I've got some normal Nile green. So the nodules, do those first. I take just one of these half cut 24s and give the tape a good old stretch. And then instead of trying to start the taping at an angle so you only overlap slightly, I'm placing the wire 90-degree angle. So the tape itself is held horizontally. I'm going to overlap. So this will be familiar if you've made twigs with me before. We'll just overlap that to get that a bit fatter. And then when you're happy, you can turn the angle of the tape so it comes a little bit down the wire and break off. The ones that I've created off the wire, these ones here, I'll just show you how to make those ones. Okay. So just take yourself another piece of tape, and you know when you pull normal sellotape and it gets to the point where you can't use it, so you squidge it up. This is what we're going to do to this. So literally all I'm doing is just crushing it, just squidging it, technical term, and then kind of rolling it into a knot, like you would knot a piece of cotton. That's probably another good description. When you get to the point where you think the node is big enough, just come onto some flat, straight, uncreased tape and just roll it in there to cover. Fashion it into a bit of a point and come off. Now as you come off, I've got a little extra bit here, tail, looks a bit like a tadpole. Okay, and then that piece can be added to your main stem as you're taping down. So just give the tape a little bit of a stretch, hold this at an angle and start it where you want the node not to show, the nodule not to show anymore. So we've just got that little bit of green at the top. Come down the wire a little way, take hold of your tadpole, put the tail bit into or onto the wire and overlap it with the tape so it sticks on. And that could be something that's going to turn into a leaf or a blossom. Come down a little bit further. So I'll just show you that scrunching again. Give it a stretch. Squidge it together. So you've got a little blob, could be larger or smaller. And then we'll just encase it in some fresh uncreased tape. Pull off some excess and fashion a tail, which would then be the bit that secures to the wire. Okay, I've just made that into a point at this end. And that one can come onto the wire on the opposite side. So I'm just going to unravel this a moment. There's no point past about 2/3 of the way down the wire in you putting any more of these nodes on. So you can put as many as you like, but keep them on the top half, because when you come to assemble, you'll find that a lot of this wire is behind the spray. So I can take that down a little bit further. So now we've got two nodes, in theory one opposite the other, plus the one on the end. And just to finish this now, I want to bend it. So I'm just going to use my finger and thumb to press, just support here as well, to bend it at an angle, and then do the same as you travel down the stem. And then when you're ready, when you've made them all, depending on what length you want, so I've got some spare here, this has got a little kink in it, so I'm just going to open that up. I'll just show you how they go together, because these little wired pieces you would assemble before you put them to the spray. So that would be after you've made your twig, that would be the next bit to do. So we'll just tape on there. Let's just finish this one off. It's only got one nodule on it, this one. And then we can start to put them together. So I want something that's nice and long. So I'm going to position this about here so that I've got my length. Okay. Again, use the brown tape. And then take the other side and just put it in a position that you quite like. So this is kind of forked, really. It's 3 prongs. Tape down. Okay, and now you've got your twigs. And the only thing I perhaps want to do now is curve the whole thing so that it's got a decent bit of natural movement to it. And that's your twig. Okay. So I'll just stop the record. And I've given a few packets away as well. But yeah, just the standard marshmallows. 1 bag of that. Okay, so just your marshmallows. And the Rice Krispies I've got are the rice crackles from Morrison's. So you don't have to get anything special. They just need to look like Rice Krispies. And what you do is you melt your butter on a low heat, and you put your marshmallows into that pan, that saucepan as well. And you'll find that the marshmallows and the butter will melt. And once it's all fully melted, you take the heat off, and then you start to mix in the Rice Krispies until it's all combined. And it looks very strandy, like chewing gum, pulled strands of chewing gum. And after a while, you can get it into a clump, store it into a plastic bag. Now, this was made at the time I actually put the Rice Krispies into the display pot that I've got the arrangement in. So it's months old. I wouldn't want to eat it now, but I thought I'd keep it. But literally, if you store it in a bag And then when you're ready, you can actually just zap it in the microwave or just warm it up. If you put it in a bowl in a bain-marie, just to soften the fat and the marshmallows again. And then it's pliable. You can mold it into whatever you want to. So this is a little bit crackly and breaky, but ideally I need to mix it in you pop it in a microwave and just melt it a little bit. And then it will all start to combine. And what I would have done is taken the pot that I'm going to display the flowers in and just drop all of that in there and then properly press it down so that there aren't too many air holes. Just really mash it in. You can, if you're trying to form a shape, so I don't know if some of you will have done the geranium flower in a pot. And when I did that, we actually created the pot out of sugar. So we needed a base, and instead of cake, we used Rice Krispies. And I had a flower pot, which was brand new and clean. I lined it with cling film. That's the key. If you want the Rice Krispies to come out, you need to line the pot. Otherwise, you can't get it out. It'll just stay. But if you're going to just use it as something that's going to hold your arrangement, then you don't need it to come out. It can just be mashed into the pot. So this I'd probably press down a little bit more, use the back of a spoon, let that set. And then that is going to be stronger than Oasis, okay, and weightier, a little bit weightier, but it's still quite light anyway. So I will email you the marshmallow Rice Krispie recipe so that you've got it to have a go at. If I show you in the pot, so the mallow Krispies are in the pot, okay, and I've gone to about here, 2/3 of the way up with the Rice Krispie mix. It's only a little bit. And then for the top, I've used brown sugar paste, so pre-coloured brown sugar paste, and I've only rolled it. I'll just talk you through this roughly because just so you know. Again, this is a very old piece of brown paste because guess what? This was all prepped, and then what happened? So this has all been sitting in the cupboard waiting for the time when we could get back together and finish this lesson off. And I am sorry that the classes aren't going to start again until December, but I had a good look at it, and I just think everyone, a bit like, you know, everyone's too scared to come out. So there's just no point in trying to start again in September because I think we wouldn't get our classes filled. But equally, if it stays how it is at 1 metre plus, we can only fit 5 into the classroom. And then, you know, who do I choose? That's going to be really hard if lots of people want to come back. So all I'm doing at the moment is taking a list of interested names for the respective classes at Christmas time that start in November. I've given you the date in the email. And if you are interested, I'm not going to commit you at this stage at all. I just need to know if you want to come, because that way we can get you on the priority list. Some of you have already come back to me, which is nice. The Tuesday morning classes, unfortunately, aren't going to resume this year. It's only going to be Thursday morning, Thursday night, same times. So I've just rolled that, and it's about probably 3 mil in thickness, and that would be placed into the pot. I know this isn't big enough, but we've just positioned that into the pot. You could, if you wanted to, you can actually do this bit first, cut a little bit of an outline. I know this is tapered, but if you get a rough shape that you want, that way it's not going to look too weird, and that would just sit on top. Okay, let's pretend it is actually the right size. And then I've tried to make, because this had a bit of a Japanese inspiration to it, they are, it's quite popular for them to put sand and then texture it. So this was my, you know, like flowing water, if you like. So I've just used the fat end of the Dresden tool instead of the sharp end, just to try and texture to make it look like it's got flowing markings, just something that they do in Japan with they're very into that, making their sand look like water. And I don't know if you can see, but the texture is coming through there. The brown I've used would be a bit dark, a bit paler, I've put my texture on it, and then I've used brown petal dust mixed with a little bit of black and just caught the edges so it gives it darker colour and picks up some of the texture. So that's how I've done the Rice Crispy Treats. Okay, so I'll just unmute you for any questions, and we'll leave it a short while, and then I'll show you how I put the spray together. All right, so I'm just going to pause again. So I've taped all the stems of the leaves. These are already taped. We'll start with a small bud first. Take one of your small leaves, position that onto the stem about 1.5 centimeters down, and then you can start your taping. So we'll just pop a little bit of tape around there. As soon as I've got that spare bit, I'm very quickly going to need a bigger piece of tape. Come down the stem a little way, and then just bend each leaf back on themselves as well, like we normally do, so that you've got them in a position where they're not going to crash into the wire as you try and tape them on. So press down and tape round. So there's 2 of the small leaves on there. Let's get myself some more tape. So this is the first sprig, and then if you've got another small bud, you can do the same again, but I'm going to show you roughly how I've put this arrangement together, but you can change it. So then I think we want to go and put on a larger leaf. So I've got the bud, 1 leaf here, 1 opposite. Come down a little way, bend the leaf at an angle. I've got the front here showing. Pop that onto the wire. I need to just tape down a little way here. Position that leaf. And again, you don't want to have too much towards the bottom of this stem because it's not going to show, it'll be underneath things. So have most of your detail near the top. Come a couple of twists around, and then we would add in a second leaf. So again, bend that at an angle. This is the top of the leaf. Pop that in. We'll take that one all the way down. Just as you're taping, just watch that the wires don't twist round because you want to have this stem as neat as possible. I just want a little bit of movement to this, so I'm just going to take my finger and thumb, bend that to an angle, just enough to give me some interest. All right, so that's the first sprig, and if you've got another bud, you could prepare the other bud with the leaves in the same way, depending on how many leaves you've got. We can count up the leaves in a bit if you like. So that's your first sprig. I'm going to take a middle size. So this is, when we did it, we made a bud without a ball, or we made like our own ball. Then we used a polystyrene ball, and then so that would give you kind of a slightly larger bud, and then we had a small layered flower, a slightly bigger one, depending on how many layers of petals you put on. So I'm not sure what everybody ended up with in the end. So assume this has got a calyx on it as well. Okay. So here's a slightly bigger flower. Just be careful when you're taping that you don't smash the petals, because as you can see, I've already got a couple of breakages here. So again, the smallest leaves will be towards the top of the stem. It looks completely out of proportion, but it's right. And then you could put in, you would put a full-size leaf in. Don't want to run out of leaves. You'll notice this one's a different colour. It's quite top heavy, this one, but you've just got a little bit of on there. Now I've just realised as well, apologies, this should have a pipe cleaner. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick rummage in the hope that I've got one here, but if I haven't, you know what I mean in terms of taking it down. I'll try and find one. No, I haven't got one, but I'll show you that in a minute on a different flower. But if you put a pipe clean on there, it just thickens the stem and it looks a bit more natural. So once you've taped all the way down, it's flinging around. Knock someone out with this, it's so heavy. Give it a little bit of a curl. So now we've got one of the opening buds, not quite full flower. Pop that onto the one you've already prepared. Okay, so I've got about 2 inches gap between the bud and the bigger flower, and this I'm going to tape in under where that leaf is. Okay, and this is only an idea, you can do it differently, and because you're going to get the video, you'll be able to refer to that if you're not doing it now, or if I'm going too fast. A bit more tape. I want to go down this a bit more. By adding the pipe cleaner before you put the leaves on this bigger flower, it will stabilize it a little bit more. I just forgot that today, sorry. Try and find it in a minute. Okay, so now we've got 2 flowers. I feel like I want to turn this round. It's having a row. That's better. Okay. The top stem has also got a 3rd flower in it. So if I bring this in and show you what I mean. If I turn it, this bit here is one section put together here, separate. So I've put my bud in, I've got my leaves, this is one section. Then I've gone again with the flower and the leaves, that's the second one. And I've gone again with the flowers and leaves. And then these 3 are put together. Okay, so what that looks like, if I show you on my other one, which is even bigger. They are stored in foil to make sure that nothing breaks. I would keep them like that until you're ready to assemble them and give them away because they're very fragile. Okay, so this one we prepare in the same way as we did this one. One small leaf, one slightly bigger one, maybe a full size one. This one looks a bit bigger, so I'll use it. So put that small one onto the stem. And then on the opposite side, a little way down. I'm cheating a bit here because this hasn't got tape on it. If you're good and you don't have to worry, you can tug this as long as you don't see white here. But when you tape them down a little bit with the twisted tape, they seem to be a bit stronger. And they stick to each other as well because the tape's tacky. So it helps when you're putting it together if you have pre-taped your leaves. Okay, again, we'll just have that twisted a little bit. And this 3rd one, taking those 2, is going to be positioned down here. So I'm going to put it about here. Okay, so it's lower than this one. Coming in, there's a gap. of about 1.5 inches. If your flower heads are really heavy, this will start to swing, so just try and hold on to it tight. Put a bit of a cloth underneath it as well to stop it from crashing as you put it down. It's amazing the difference when they're coloured, because these are not, so they don't look as pretty. Okay, so that is the top sprig. And of course, these two can be smaller. Again, if I bring the one that's actually on display in, these are the equivalent, but they're much smaller. A couple more leaves on there as well. So what you would then do is do the same again for the other small bud you've got. And that then means you've got this main stem that we've just created, that I've just demoed, this one, which is on its own, and the main flower. Okay, 1, 2, 3 main stems plus your twigs, which go in last. And all I've done then is taken that first main stem that we've just done and added my big main flower quite low down, and then brought in my last small sprig. So you've got a bit of an L shape going on. I'm going to lift my camera actually, because this is not helping. It's just, excuse the juddering. Move that out of the way as well, so we're a bit better. So you've got, this is the main sprig that we've just done with the 1, 2, 3. You've got the main flower attaching at the bottom, and you've got a little sprig, just one bud with foliage. The foliage on the bottom bud, I have actually carried down the stem a little bit more, but they all join as a threesome into an L shape. Okay, that's what it looks like from the front. So this one is coming up and these are curving. I didn't actually trim it. The stem was longer than this, and I didn't trim it until I was ready to put it into the arrangement. Once you've put your 3 stems in, you can add in your twigs. I'll just show you what that looks like on this top spray. And then I'll stop to check to see how much I've managed to confuse you. Okay, so now if I want the twigs make the difference actually, because it suddenly brings it all to life. So we'll bring the twigs in behind the arrangement that we've just put together, just bending it back a little bit here. Check it out, make sure you're happy, and you can either tape it down in the green or the dark brown, depending on what colour tape is dominating the taping at this stage, which is, for me now, it's the green, whereas on the stem that went into the pot, it's the brown. And you can see the stem on this is much longer, and I wouldn't trim that until I've got all my pieces together. So if I give you a profile on that, it's curved. You can bring this round a little bit actually, and that more behind. So you've got this curved effect. That's the side, back, front. And you can see now you've got, that was the one sprig we put together. You've got your twigs at the back, but the main flower would sit in here, and you've just then got that singular bud that comes out here. So when you look at it, it's obvious where you want your main flower. And if I'm sitting this upright, you can see that it's kind of facing up towards the ceiling, bit of an angle. So now you've all gone to sleep with your gin and tonics and what might have been a bit of a confusing demo. I'm just going to stop recording. I'm just recording this bit. I say that in case anybody decides they want to say anything they shouldn't. When you put a pipe cleaner in, and you could put pipe cleaners on all the flowers if you want, or just the big one, just rest it against the wire and then tape away. So get your tape as high up to the neck of the flower as you can, and just overlap. Make sure your tape's good and stretched, because what you don't want to do is actually stretch it too tightly onto the pipe cleaner, because you lose the puffiness of the pipe cleaner. So you need to tape quite loosely, but make sure you overlap. And we use that technique for a lot of things like poppies and okay, so that's how you put the pipe cleaner on. So sorry, I should have done that right at the beginning.